chat and Q&A, and help out with anything that may pop up. Oh, I'm always grateful for that little reminder to turn on my spotlight. Okay. So as you've been through a little over a week of this, you may have caught on to kind of a similar cadence at the beginning here. We'll look through our agenda, which will start with the housekeeping items. And then we're going to talk about defining your services for your customer portal, configuring a services template, configuring those services that you have previously defined, configuring categories for those services, and then determining visibility permissions of services. And then of course, we'll have time at the end for Q&A. So the intended audience for this session is anyone who would be a TDX administrator, and that does include application administrators for client portal apps and ticketing apps, the project manager of the implementation, and then just anyone interested in learning more about setting up a service catalog. So that might include service owners. So an individual who may just own a service or a handful of services that will be presented to your users on your catalog. Help desk contributors who maybe provide those services or need to explain how to use the catalog to your client base. And then team leads, again, who just may be helping define those services that your organization provides. Prerequisites for today's module is having a user record in your BE with access to TD Admin, TD Next, the client portal app, or app admin access to the client portal application. Having attended the readiness foundations module is also helpful. If you don't have the prerequisites above, you can still follow along. Your just active participation might be a little bit more limited. Helpful but not required is a service as defined by ITIL for your organization. So something that you provide, maybe that's certain piece of software or something like that, that you as an organization provide to your clients. Some logistics that are the same throughout the whole process here. Follow along and practice the configuration as we go. This is definitely a module that's going to be more like, let's talk about the concepts, and then you will have homework to work on outside of the session, certainly, because we'll kind of go through how to create a service and categories and things. And then you'll take that knowledge and then go and build your catalog in your environment. Attendees are muted, so ask your questions in the Q&A so that everyone can see them, and then chat is also available. Just send those messages to Michelle and I as panelists. The session is recorded and the link will be added after the meeting, and the transcription just may take a little time to become available so that it's searchable. All links referenced in the PowerPoint today are found in the readiness course category of the KB, and then of course Michelle will link them in the chat for us. And then you also, so that readiness section is linked in the link section of your implementation project. The session today will be about an hour and a half. I think this whole session kind of round has been running a little bit shorter because you're a smaller group, so there's not quite as many questions as usual. So we'll probably hit right around that. Again, just sort of depends on how many questions and how quickly I talk today over our topics. So some session outcomes. We would expect you to leave this session knowing how to go about defining your services. We'll talk through some resources that we have to help you with that exercise. Configuring a services template, how to configure a service, and then how to configure service categories that those services will go into. And then how to determine visibility permissions of services and categories. That's a really useful function if you're going to do internal services or internal knowledge. It's kind of the same idea on the knowledge-based side of things that you'll learn more about, but really handy functionality there. All right, so first sort of concept, but it's still sort of in the housekeeping area, what is a service catalog? So the Team Dynamics Service Catalog is a request catalog that acts as a medium for customers to ask for something. So the point of having all of these things readily available is to enable self-help, so your clients can go to the catalog and find the thing that they need and submit that request very easily. by filling out those forms, the customers can answer the questions that you need in order to get them help as fast as possible. So there's less back and forth. So if they just send you an email that says, my computer's broken, right? Not very helpful, not a lot of information, but if you have a desktop troubleshooting service of some kind, then you can ask, what model machine are you on? Or, what kind of error are you encountering? Those sort of things that you can get a lot more information upfront using the forms and these specific services. We have a couple of articles here to help you get started with some of the concepts that we're going to go over today in that getting started article. And the article's attachments are super helpful tools to kind of this whole process of defining your services and setting up your catalog. And then the second link is example service catalogs. So just kind of a random grouping of example catalogs from our customer base. And so there's tons and tons out there. Great examples for you to look through to kind of just get some ideas of how you might want to set up your catalog. So here's one example of a K through 12 service catalog, just some categories set up here for the high level groupings of services. And so accounts and access is a super common one for IT organizations, computer device printing, kind of those physical items kind of grouped together, file share, backup. So you'll have we'll talk about how to create categories to group your services for sure. And we'll look at a couple of other examples as well. So let's go ahead and have everybody sign in to your business entity and navigate to TD Client. Like we've all probably mentioned across these sessions, it's just up to you whether you want to do in production or sandbox, wherever you feel more comfortable. This is the things that we're going to create today, you can delete. And so it's not a problem if you change your mind or you do your practicing in production and you end up not needing the thing that you build. That's okay, you can delete them. So either way, whichever thing feels more comfortable for you. Okay. So we're going to start with defining your services and how we go about kind of that thought exercise, if you will. So the purpose of defining the services is because the things that we write down will become the services that your technicians and customers select when they're creating tickets. And so this is your list of things that we provide to the organization. It's important to know what service your organization offers versus what it doesn't. This just gives you a place to say, like, hey, if someone comes to you and says, I want XYZ, and you say, well, is it on the catalog? Then that's not something we can provide. And so you just have a kind of a single point place that you can point to kind of say, here's everything that we offer. If it's not there, then, maybe we go from there on that conversation. You have different levels of ability with that one, but definitely gives you a starting place. And then the catalog is definitely one of those things that's never really done in the sense that you'll probably be adding services over time. You'll also remove services over time. And so don't feel like you have to have 100% of your things defined and created in order to go live. It's something that's like a living and breathing thing that you will add and remove just as your services evolve, and that's totally fine and expected and very normal. So we like to kind of say, focus on the things that produce 80% of your tickets. That usually amounts to around 10 services roughly. And so that's like, what are the bulk of your things? Password resets, those kinds of things that amount to the largest portion of tickets that you may have. And start there. And then as you have time and resources and things, you can add to those services as needed. So the process of defining your services, this can take place outside of the tool. So in that article that we referenced a little bit ago, getting started with your service catalog, there is a really great Excel spreadsheet that has a kind of the columns of information that we're going to talk about and that you would need to define these services. And this document is also in your project briefcase. So you can get it from the briefcase, or you can get it from this article here, and kind of just use that as your place that you're aggregating all of this information. So columns A through D and F will directly translate to fields that you'll use when you're actually creating the services in Team Dynamics. And then column E will translate to attributes that you would need to know when you create forms in the ticketing essentials class tomorrow. So those are things like, the type of computer someone is on, their operating system version, those kinds of informational things that you might want in order to provide this service. And so having those just kind of in that document make it really easy to then create a form out of that information. Columns G through K are more flexible, so you can change them if you want. We just sort of put a very generic example of things you may want to use as you define your template for your service descriptions. And so this is information about the service itself. So what is it? How much does it cost? That kind of information that if someone comes to a service page and they need to know prior to selecting the service, maybe if they're not really sure if it's exactly what they need, or you're an organization where a service costs money, you maybe put the cost on there, that kind of thing. So people have all the information they need prior to requesting the service. And so it just makes it, again, that self-help function a lot easier. So definitely check out that document and put it somewhere that you all can kind of share the work. And so if you have a team of people that are going to be working on defining your service catalog, then you can all work on that one document, together. So let's pull up this article. It's gonna maybe let me hear. What are we doing? There we go. So here is this getting started article. And so you can see we have several related articles that are helpful about different pieces. Like there's example client portals and just some kind of philosophies of different things, frequently asked questions. So a lot of really great resources linked to this one article. And then down here are some actual file resources. And so this one, defining your services template, is the Excel document that I'm talking about. So we'll just pop that open really quickly and take a look. So it has some example data in this first few rows here, just to kind of help you start thinking through the kind of information that we would want in these columns that we're looking for. And so category, service offering, owning team in person, these items will translate to your so I think it said A through D, and then F are the items that you'll actually use to create your service. And then E is the things that will become attributes. And then these out to the right here are service description information. And so if nothing ever costs anything at your organization, maybe you don't need column K. So you could remove that, or you could change it to something else. Just again, relevant information to your organization that would help a customer looking for this service. So my advice, I guess, and I think we say this later in the presentation, is to kind of just start with your service names. And so maybe skip the category for now. And just start writing down, like, what are the services that we provide, and just kind of brain dump all of that information into the sheet. And then you can kind of start looking for patterns. And maybe if you say printing, and then you also write 3D printing, you can start to kind of see some patterns and some groupings that you can make in either to services and service offerings or into categories. So this document, super helpful. Definitely check that out and utilize it for building your catalog. So a guiding principle from ITIL for you here, as you're again going through this thought exercise, is to collaborate and promote visibility. So that's the purpose of this service catalog. It's much easier to ask a team lead or members of each team about their services than for one person to try to define them all. When I was going through this as an admin, I knew the security team, a handful of things that they did, but I did not know all of the services that they provided to our organization. And so I worked very closely with the team leads in security to define these services and get what are the things you need on the form to gather the information. What is this service? How much does it cost? All those different pieces of information. So definitely share that responsibility among your organization so you can get accurate and complete data for your catalog. Stick the template in the SharePoint folder or somewhere that everyone can work on it together. So that template being that Excel file, so that everyone can kind of just work on it at their leisure. Another guiding principle that we like to talk about when it comes to defining your catalog is to start where you are. So if you have an existing catalog, great, then you are a leg up and you can just take the things that are already working from that. You don't have to start from scratch. And so if you have something to begin from, start with that list, and then we can kind of start reworking it into the team dynamics using that spreadsheet. If you have something that's partial, great, that's still a starting point. If you have nothing, that's okay. Just start putting down some ideas into that spreadsheet so you can start taking shape of everything that you offer at your organization. If you don't know where to start and you're like, my mind's blown already, and I just don't have a good list going, start by looking at the clientservices.teamdynamics.com as a point of reference. And so we'll be working in that tool, that environment today. And so we'll look at that, but it has several examples of different kind of styles of catalogs for different purposes, like state and local government, higher ed, different styles like that, that just can be kind of a kickstart to if you're not sure where to start. Okay, so the first actual item that we're going to work on in the environment is to configure a services template. So the purpose of a services template is to create familiarity and uniformity across your catalog. And so that basically, if every service information page looks very similar, then people know where they need to look to find the cost information or who this is for or something like that. And so it's an aesthetically pleasing kind of idea to have that consistent design across your catalog. And it also assures that you're communicating what you need to the end users. And so it's, you know, here's what they need to know, and so that they can request that service. And it makes it easy for end users to find the piece of information they're looking for. So like costing, like I said, it's always the third bullet point is how much it costs, and they can know that they need to look there for that information across all of your services. So to configure a services template, you will navigate to your client portal application. So your environments.teamdynamics.com/TD client/home, SV TD client if you're going to do this in Sandbox to practice. Select services and then templates. Select manage categories and select new category, and then name your category and write a description if necessary, and select save. So we like to show you how to create a template first, so you can kind of be in that mindset of we want everything to look similar first. And so you today probably won't be hammering out exactly what your template will look like, but you can kind of be thinking, okay, we know we need to incorporate these data points into the template so that we can have a good, you know, starting point for that aesthetic element of the service. And then, so more on configuring the services template, you will navigate back to the templates and select a new template, and then put your template in a category and name your template and write a description if necessary. So we had to create the category first before we could actually put the template into a category. And the reason is that you may want to have slightly different versions. And so like if you are a portal that has enterprise service management, and you have, so the template for IT services is slightly different than the template for facility services and so on and so forth. You may want to have categories of the different areas. And so you'd have a category for IT, facilities, and so on. And then you can have templates inside of those categories. And so we want to create the category first and then the actual template. So we could put that template that we create into a category, and then using the WYSIWYG editor to create your template for the actual template for the services. And so again, you can base it off of columns G through K in that services worksheet that we looked at before. And then when done, we save it. And so here is an article about article and service templates. The process of creating those is pretty similar. And so it's a concept that you will also use in your knowledge base, of having a similar style for your knowledge base articles as you would have for similar service style across your catalog. Okay, now we'll hop over to our environment. Let me make sure no questions or anything come in. Okay. So I'm here in my sandbox portal. And so, like I said, if you are wanting kind of some examples or a place to start looking on our homepage here, there are several different styles of catalog. And so you can click through these examples and just kind of check out the categories that we have. And then there are services inside of some of those categories. And so you can kind of check that out as a helping start, I guess, a helping hand. Okay, so to do the two things that we just discussed, we want to make sure that we're signed in. And if you are a application admin, then you might want to click the admin button there in order, well, that brought me to the big admin for everything. But if you are an admin of your application, then you can access that through there as well. Okay, so we're going to hop into the services section, and we're just going to be editing this main service catalog on this environment here. And we want to create a template. So as you see, when I clicked on services, I get a secondary menu here across this bar that gives me, more function depending on the permissions that I have. So if I click here on, do I not have templates? I might not have the right permissions in this application suddenly. Sometimes we mess with each other's accounts in the environments, and then these get messed up. So I'm going to flip over to my, hold on just one second, to my catalog, and we'll just do this in my environment where I know I have the right permissions. Let's see. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so now I'm in my sandbox environment here, and I'm actually in the production side, but that's fine. We're just going to be playing around today. Not as well fleshed out as our client services environment, but we can still go through the process of setting these up. So now that I'm signed in with someone that has the proper permissions, here in the secondary menu, I have the templates category. So if I click that, I want to first click on manage categories, and this is where I can create a category for my templates. And so my example, I'm just going to say IT as my category, my first category of templates that I'm going to create. So I can add a description if I want, but I'm not going to do that today. And so now I actually have a category. And so I want to click back on the templates section to go back to the main page where I can click the plus new for template. So the first thing which is required is the category. So if the category didn't exist, then we wouldn't have any choices here. You can also click the plus symbol from this page to create a category, but since we already did that, we have our option here in the dropdown. So I'm going to click that. We're just going to call this just a general IT service. So this would be the style of service information that I want to do for just general IT services. I might have something that's more of a troubleshooting specific service, or a service that costs money or something, just if I want to divide a little bit of how those services look, but I still want to keep that similar look across all of them. So down here is where you use your WYSIWYG editor to create your template. And so if you're someone who knows HTML, or you have someone on the team that does, then this is where you can go hog wild with creating some really fancy stuff. If you click the source button, then that kind of flips you over to the HTML code mode. If you're someone like me who did not learn HTML as part of their kind of IT upbringing, then you definitely have just the WYSIWYG editor that works great and you can use for different, all the different pieces that we have involved in here. So I'm going to say special container with a large heading in here. You know, what is this? And I can put in that template, that like header, and then I would just go in here and build in what I want the outline of the service information to be. And then we won't spend time kind of creating this because it's not going to be pretty whatever I make. So we won't spend a lot of time doing that today, but this is where, again, you can build kind of the outline of what you want it to look like. So I'm going to click save to save this template that we have here in, and then we'll click back on the template section. And so now I have this general IT service template that I created. So I can always come back here and edit it. So if I just built this as someone who's just, you know, getting started learning the tool, but then I want someone who knows HTML to help me out, they give me some code or something like that, then I can come back and edit this and paste in that code into the body here. It's not, you know, it's not like you created it and then you're stuck with whatever you made. You can always edit it at any time. Okay, so any questions about creating a template category and then an actual template inside of that category fit for your service information? Okay. Pop back over to our PowerPoint. Our next topic will be configuring services. And so we're going to use that beautiful template that I made to create a service with some information on its page and all the other elements that are needed for the service. So again, you'll take that document that we looked at and you'll do this kind of part of the process for each one of the rows on your spreadsheet. And so if you have, you know, 50 services, then you may be creating 50 services. But I would you know, kind of encourage you to go through kind of the steps of how to create a service, but do spend some time on that spreadsheet to define your services so that you get kind of like the cohesive overview of everything before you really dive in and start creating stuff. Because we just talked about a template and you can use that template, but once a service has been created and used that template, you have to go back and update each service. It's not like you can change something on the template and then push that down to all of your services. So you want to kind of have a good idea of what things are going to look like before you go powering through creating all of your services. And then you say, oops, we forgot about this one piece of data, or we want to change the look entirely, something like that. But definitely spend some time practicing. Just maybe don't dive straight in creating all of your services first thing. Okay, to the purpose of creating, configuring your services, again, to promote that self-service so people can find the thing that they need and very easily on your portal. It communicates what your organization does or doesn't do, as we discussed before. Single source of consistent information. So again, you can kind of point your users to the catalog to say, you know, hey, everything you can get from us, go to this website, and then it's all there. Or even if it's not, if the exact thing you're not looking for, we have a general service that you can put something, your request into, and then we will evaluate it from there. So every inroad is through that portal, maybe. It establishes process instead of treating each request as a unique one-off. And so again, if I need to buy a piece of equipment, then I go through the equipment service and it goes through the approval process and it does the things that I need it to do on the back end, so that I'm not having to like manually help it along every single time. Having these services is helpful for reporting, so that you can say, we got, 15 device purchase requests this month. And that's a trend we see more in August because people are coming back to school or something like that. And so over time, you can see data trends using your services. The service catalog FAQ section that I sort of mentioned that was linked on that other article is also a really cool, like just thing to kind of think about as you're defining your services. A lot of information is just helpful for this thought exercise, as I keep calling it, so you can get everything down in that spreadsheet. Okay. To configure a service, you will navigate to your BE's client portal. So just where we were before, so we're still in that client portal application, and then we're going to select services and then new service, name your service, and then give it a short description if you like. You can base this off of your column F in the services template worksheet. And then in the long description WYSIWYG editor is where we will select that template that we just made from the drop down and to kind of plop in our beginning points of our service. And so we may have several headings, on there, and we can just then fill in the actual information for this particular service that we're creating. On that page, the order in which you the order is the order in which the service will sort. And so if you leave it as 0, they will sort alphabetically. But if you want to be very intentional about the order that you put your services in, you can give them numbers. And so if you want password resets to be at the top of that section, then you can give that a 1 and then everything else a 2, and then they'll all be alphabetical ordered from there. Or if you want to put them in a very specific order, give them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can put them in whatever order you want. I would say most people do just alphabetical, but there may be one service that you want to put at the top and then everything else is alphabetical, just whatever makes sense for your organization. Ensure the service is active and then set the owner or manager of the service. And you can pull this from column B of that worksheet that we've looked at earlier. So you can see how important this worksheet will be once you have it all filled out. Set the request application as the ticketing application that will receive these services. And so if, again, you're an organization that is doing enterprise service management, I may have one portal with multiple ticketing applications. And so if this is an IT service that we're creating, we would select the IT ticketing application. If it's a facilities one, then we select the facilities application from this dropdown. Select the appropriate ticket type, and then the request service text is the ability to customize the button that they click. And so if you don't put anything in there, it's just going to say request service. Or you can say request software or report a problem, depending on, what it is that the service is for. Then you determine who to notify on creation of a ticket, and then add tags to your service as necessary. If you want, this just helps with searching. And so if you have a service that it's service for Duo, the name of the service is Duo, but people might search for multi-factor authentication. You can put that in MFA. You can put both of those tags in just to help with searching on your customer portal, and then select save. All right, so we're going to hop back over again to my environment where I have the right permissions. And so we're going to click on services here. And then we want to click plus new service to create a new service in our catalog here. So click service, and notice on this page that category is not required. And so our recommendation is to skip this at this point because you may need to, it's easier usually to have your kind of services listed, and then you can look at that and see where the natural buckets fall and create your categories after you've created a few services, rather than trying to flip that and force things into buckets that may not work. So we'll skip the category for now and then name our service. And so we'll go with that, that Duo example just for fun. So Duo, I'm going to put MFA in parentheses. So that's the title of my service. So people will see that Duo parentheses MFA. And then I can put in a short description if I want. This is what shows up under the title of the service in the list page, but you do not have to fill that in if you don't want wording there, or it's not required at all. The long description is the part where we would choose that template that we created before. So I click on templates, and then I have just the one that I have in this environment. So I click that, and then whoops, don't do it twice so that you end up with what I just did there. But you can put in your template and then start filling out the, this is or whatever, and put in the information that is answering the questions for this specific service. So we keep scrolling down and we get our kind of second set of options. The order here, it will default to 0. And again, if you leave them all as 0, they will just be in alphabetical order, but you can choose a number if you want to force a certain order. I'm just going to leave mine in alphabetical. It is default to active, so that's good. The manager here is defaults to whoever's creating the service, but if this is something that this is managed by the security team, then I would want to choose my security manager. So I'm going to put Kara in there, and because she's the actual manager of this service. And so this is just a data point for reporting and for me to know, and other admins to know, Kara is responsible for making sure that this is up to date, and in the sense that she's the one who provided this information. You do have to have an assets and CIs application selected, but the service may not actually tie back to anything. So you can just leave that as the default there if you want. And then same with maintenance window. We won't really go into that because that just has to do with assets and CIs and kind of those processes we won't be going over today. Request application though is required, and this is where we choose the ticketing app that it would go to. So my example, I keep saying facilities versus IT. This is an IT type of ticket. So I've chosen that request application, and you can see that another field opens up where it gives me the types of tickets, the ticket types inside of that ticketing application. So I'm gonna, since this is we're gonna call that one troubleshooting because people are they're needing help with their Duo application for this service. So we fill in our type there. I can put in text here if I want, and so I can say request help maybe for this service. But if I don't put anything in there, it will just say request service on the button. And then I have two choices of whether I want to notify the requester on ticket creation initially, or if I want to notify the responsible resource. And so this just depends on your organization. I would say recommendation would be to notify the requester so that they know that their ticket was submitted. They have an email with the number in their inbox that they can refer to. But that's, every organization may make a different decision there. And then notify responsible resource would be who the ticket is assigned to upon creation. So again, every org is kind of different on this one, whether they want to get that. So to me, security is a group who may not work like every day, all day inside of the ticketing app. So they may rely on that notification. And so you may want to check that. But if there's somebody, it's like the service desk service that they're in there all day looking at the tickets, they don't need an email every time. So you can make individual choices for the services using these checkboxes. And then we won't talk about workflows today, but you will in advanced ticketing. And so you can assign a workflow at this point, but we haven't gotten into that. So we'll skip that one for now. And then I'm going to put the tag multi-factor in there just for searching. So we see what it looks like when there's a tag on there. So I'm going to click save. And boom, there we go. We have our service. And so you can see the title, the lovely service description that we have here, the tag that I added, which is visible to clients. So just be aware of that and don't go crazy with those, putting like 50 tags in, maybe just a handful just to help with searching. And then our request help button says that text because that's what I typed into that field. So great. We have a new service that we've created. And I see a question has come in. We are not seeing request types. Is this because we don't have these set up? If you're talking about in here, yeah, request type, yes. If this is blank, then that means that you have not created any ticket types inside of the ticketing app that you have selected. And so that would have to be created first in order for a one to be selected, and it is required value. So if you got stuck here, you'll have to go create a type in your ticketing app, and then it should let you, when you click the magnifying glass, it will kind of like search and see again, and so new ones will show up there, so you can kind of like hop over and then hop back, if you will. Which training was the type covered in? I don't know off the top of my head, Michelle. We've made some kind of adjustments lately, and so I don't know if you know, or if you can look really quick. If you don't know off the top of your head, I believe we've talked about it previously.
I don't think it has been covered yet.
Hmm.
We go in and create a general ticket type to get everything set up pre-readiness. So this session has been a little bit different with people joining at different times, so it may have gotten missed. Adam, if you want to tell me which organization you're with, then I can go in and check for you. Josh, you also.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. So yeah, the ticket types concept is something we've kind of like talked about moving around as far as as she said, how this kind of process goes. And so if you didn't have one in your environment, that was an oversight. And so Michelle can get you one added real quick. And so she's going to add that, but let's see. Oh, okay. Let me just go over that real quick on how to create a type. I think we'll have plenty of time today. That won't put us too far behind. So I'm going to hop back over to, well, here, we'll just stay in my environment today. We're going to see all my nerdy Veronica Mars and Battlestar Galactica references in my environment today. So the ticket type gets created from the TD admin or the app admin for your ticketing app. So we're going to hop into, we'll just use my IT tickets application. So here I am on the application admin for that ticketing app. And then we have a section for types right here. And you would just create a new one by clicking the plus symbol here. The reason we've kind of moved this around a little bit and toyed with how we talk about it is because the types used to be very, very important to the tool. But as we've expanded functionality and added lots of different ways to do reporting and to categorize and to do workflows and automations and all these things, the type has gotten less and less important. And so that's why we've kind of just made general as the ticket types that are in there by default for you. You can add additional types from this screen right here. But my advice and our collective advice is to not go overboard with this because it's somewhat of a redundant value because you have all these other things that you can report by and categorize by services, service categories, service offerings, even custom attributes that you might create. And so either just stick with general or the next recommendation might be that your category is one of your ESM areas. So in my environment here, I have IT and facilities. And so you might have the category being IT and then general IT help, and then the category being facilities and then general facilities help or ticket or something like that. So very broad buckets because it's a required field, but not a really important field in terms of functionality as the tool works today. So hope that helps a little bit. And so you at least know where to create them, but we just don't want you to get like real hung up on making this really fleshed out because there's other places that information is used and more important.
So I checked for Josh's and they do have that ticket type, the general, but he's saying that they don't even have the drop down listed. Do you know why that would be?
Well, the drop down does not, if you mean like this field does not show up, it doesn't show until you select a ticketing application. And so you can see here, I have 2 ticket applications. If I clicked projects, then that's, it's going to look at the project tickets, the project types, which we won't get into until we look at project essentials late next week. If I click link, then I get a link URL field instead. So if you're not seeing that drop down, then you may have none selected. But if you click on a ticketing application, it should pop up. and ask you to fill something in there. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Let me scroll back through and make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Let me know if there are more questions or we want to go back over anything with that. You know, moral of the story though, this does not need to be a large list. We just kind of want to keep the buckets like bigger so that we have put somewhere to put things, but then we use categories and services and service offerings and all these other things to do more delineation from there. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, no problem. Glad we got it sorted out. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions about creating a service? As you just saw me do, you can click on edit service to update anything in here. So if you didn't have all this information now, you can come back and edit it later. The settings page is where we had that kind of second set of information that we filled in, so we can always change that there. We won't get into all of these other tabs today. You'll talk more about forms and ticketing essentials, and then we'll look at permissions later on today in this presentation. Okay, didn't see any other questions come in. Thank you for pausing for that clarification. It's great. We make sure we all are on the same page about everything. So that's great. Okay. Great. So now we're going to talk about configuring service categories. So we made a service, and like I mentioned, we sort of recommend that you create some services before you try to create categories so that you're not trying to force things into buckets, you know, the other direction. So now that we've made a service, we're going to create a category to put that service inside of. So you know how to do it. More of the reasons that we do service categories, again, promoting self-service, help the customers easily find what they need for reporting. So this is another layer like of ways that we can organize things and pull data based on these fields that we're in, categories that we're creating. It's also useful on the category side for visibility restrictions. So you may have a whole category that is internal services. And so you have, like, say you have 5 categories that are for your customers, and then you have one whole category that's internal services. So only other IT people or other facilities people or technicians of the environment can request services from that category that we're going to create. And so you can set visibility for the whole category, and all 10 services inside of it follow that category's visibility permissions. So as I've said many times, we sort of recommend to create your services first and then your categories, so you're not having to try to fit square pegs into round holes with that. So it's just kind of some wisdom that we've gathered across many implementations. So whatever works best for you, but that's sort of if you're kind of just getting started with this style of organization. And even if you've done it before, it may be a good time to rethink how we organize everything in the way that Team Dynamics kind of sets up tickets. And so this is your opportunity to revamp everything. So how to create a service category will again be in our client portal where we've been today, and then select services again, and then new category instead of new service. And so we'll name that category and then nest your category if you need to. So you can have several layers. And so if we had you know, accounts and access, and then was our main category, and then we wanted to have a accounts and then access requests as 2 separate categories, and then services underneath there, we can have that hierarchy if we want to. So we'll ask you if you want to nest it, but no need to be overly complicated if it's not necessary. So you can just have that one layer for sure, and that's great. Order it in which the order, gosh, I don't know why I always mess up this sentence. Order is the order in which the category will sort. So same thing as our services. If you leave it as 0, they'll be alphabetical. But then if you put in numbers, it will force them into that particular order. So if you want to have, you know, you have a category that's like, most people need this thing, and you want it at the top, you can put that number first. So more configuring, you give your category description if applicable, and then you can give it an icon if you like. And so both of those are not required. It's just kind of some ways you can aesthetically zhuzh up your catalog. And so we'll stick those in so you can see what that looks like. You'll select save. Your categories won't display unless they have content in them. So that's why we create the service first, and then we can put the service inside of the category so we can see the category. So if you hit save at this point and you're like, where'd it go? Don't panic. It's just not there because there's nothing in it. And so then we'll go and add an existing service and navigate by, and to do that, we will navigate to that service and then select the edit service, and we can update that field that we saw that was the very top of that settings page. And then it will be in our category. So here's our article about working with service categories, but let's hop over to our environment and have a go. So we're going to click, we're still in the client portal, we'll click the services tab. And so you can see several services that I've created before and a category that exists already. There's our service that we made before that has a short description. So you can see all of these do not, so there's no text there. But if I wanted to give a, this is what you use to log into your email, something like that description right here on this page without somebody having to click on it, then I can do that for the short description. So we're going to click plus new category to create a new category. And so I'm going to just call this security, since we're talking about Duo and security related things. And so this is going to be a top level category. So I'm not going to put it inside of anything. So security is its own thing. I don't want it to go inside of accounts, but I could choose that if I wanted to, if it was a subcategory of accounts which already existed. I'm not going to do that today. The order, it's defaulting to 2 because this is number 1. So I can change that or enforce an order or put it as, the same so that they're in alphabetical order, whatever I want to do there. And then I can put in a description of the service of the category. And so this would just show up here in this little box for the service so that someone can say, service, this category is security. So I may like have a list of what those categories are, or just services related to IT security, as our description. Again, whatever you think is helpful for your user base. Now I have these 2 last fields down here, icon and then icon color. I'm going to click change icon, and the colors that you're seeing are the colors that are adhering to my portal styles that I've set up in this environment. And so yours will probably still be the defaults, but you'll learn more about how to change these in that session, the client portal session. Let's see, what are we talking about? Security. So see, I'm not getting anything there. I think there's like a secret user or something like that. Yeah, that guy. Put him as our icon. There's our secret agent. And then I can choose a particular color for the icon. So let's say I want to make him blue. There we go. So instead of just being the default gray, if I don't choose a color, he's going to be blue. So I'll click save there and add and save that. So as you saw, the page refreshed, but we don't see that category. That's because there's nothing inside of the category yet. And so we're going to hop back over to the service that we made earlier and then click edit service. And then on our settings page, we have that first field where I can select the security category that we just made, and then scroll down and click save. And then I'm going to go back to the services page, and there we are, security blue guy in our category that we just created. If I click on that, we'll see Duo inside of that. So you can see it's no longer listed here on the main page. It's now living inside of this category that we just made. Okay. Any questions about service categories, creating them, changing the colors of the logos, anything there? Okay. All right, time for a little break. it's 12:56 where I am. So at 1:01, we'll come back. And so take a quick break, grab some water. That's what I'm going to do. And we'll be back in just a few minutes. Welcome back. Thank you, Michelle. Right. Move on to our last major topic here, configuring service visibility. So the purpose of services visibility is to limit the visibility of internal services mainly, or you can limit them to particular groups within Team Dynamics. And so this reduces confusion by only allowing customers to see services relevant to them. So we'll talk through how to set that up. Excuse me. How to set this permission is still inside of the client portal where we've been today, and then select your services section and then navigate to the service in which you would like to edit visibility. You'll select that edit service button and then select permissions and then uncheck inherit and then uncheck public if that's applicable, and then set your permissions based on the configured groups in Team Dynamics and then select save. So this process we're going to go through at the service level first, and then you can also do pretty much the same process at the category level. So we'll go through both of those. And so here's the steps at the category level. So still in the client portal, your services section, and then you navigate to the category, and instead of having an edit button, we have a little edit pencil that lets us modify the category. And then you'll select permissions and then uncheck inherit, uncheck public if applicable, and then set your category permissions based on the configured groups, and then select save. So all the services inside of that category will follow the permissions unless you set it otherwise. So it's like that parent permissioning. And so unless you go to a particular service and change it, it will inherit the visibility from the category level. Let me turn my little pointer spotlight thingy back on. Okay. So let's go do that. All right, so still in our portal, we'll click services to be on our main category page here. And I'm going to edit the visibility of this network help service first. So I click on the service name and then click edit service over here. And then I have the permissions tab. Click on that one. And then there's our uncheck inherit and then uncheck public. And then these are my options for now who gets access. And so typically you usually see this allow only the associated groups. And so these groups in this list are defined inside of Team Dynamics and maintained, by the admins, or like we've talked about, I think in this cycle previously, if you set up that automated utility that we have for that. And so I'm going to say this particular network help service is geared for the networking team only to submit things to each other. I don't know. So I click that group out of the list. And so allowing only the associated groups to use this, and then click save. So now only members of the networking group in Team Dynamics would be able to see this service. And then I, as an admin, can see everything, but somebody else who logged in would only be able to see this if they are part of networking. So pretty easy. The hardest part, honestly, is just, maintaining the groups and setting those up and making sure that you have that kind of configured to work. This permission is really easy. So the other radio button is allow all individuals except a certain group. So we see that used way less. And so if we wanted to hide a certain service from the networking team, like they are not allowed to submit this, then we would choose that radio button instead. Usually more often this top one is the one that's selected. Okay, so that was on the service level. And so now I'm going to go back to services and then click on our security category that we created before. And so notice I don't have an edit category button, but here's my little edit pencil. Click on that and get a pop-up with less options, but still kind of similarly looking things that we saw when we created the category. I click permissions here and then uncheck, and then I get those same choices, allow only or allow accept. And so I think again, we'll do allow only the security team can see the things inside of this category. And then I click save there. And my changes are saved. So now only the security team can see things inside of this category that we just edited. Okay. So again, as an admin, I can see everything that's listed here. But if a client user logged in and they're not a member of the security group, they won't be able to see that category. Any questions? Okay, so a useful tool inside of the portal is this permissions audit section. And so this is how you can kind of see a high level view of all of your permissioning as you have it set. And so you don't have to go click into each category or service and then their permissions tab and, and all of that to see this information. You can see it right on the portal itself. Excuse me. So here I am in my portal, and then I have this permissions audit section. You click on that and you can see, I don't have a whole lot of stuff in here, so it's not a really long list, but you can see all of the different like permission sets. And so there's that security category. It is not public and it is only visible to security. And so therefore the Duo service has inherited those permissions. Same thing, network here. This is just a service. And so it's not public and only visible to the networking team group inside of Team Dynamics. And then this service is, it also notes that it allows public requesters. So someone does not have to be signed in order to use this service. And so this is pretty common. Usually we see some organizations have at least one service that is publicly available if they serve people outside of their named users. And so, you know, higher education institutions usually have this for just kind of like prospective students or things like that, that are members of the community that they serve or something there. But if you only serve people who have access to their accounts and can sign into the portal, then you may not have a public requester service. So nifty little permissions audit option there. A little bit, you know, information about the different things that you see down here. They're relatively self-explanatory. And hopefully you find that helpful. Okay, time for everybody's favorite part, the quiz. See how well we went over our concepts today. And then of course we'll have time for Q&A if there's anything we need to go back over or we want to discuss further, anything like that. So please take a few minutes and fill out our quiz today, and appreciate it. I feel like I'm really boring in these parts. Does Mark usually sit here and tell dad jokes while?
It's possible there's one in there. Yeah. A lot of people read the questions out loud.
They do. Okay, maybe I'll do that. So we're not just. I'm trying to build more comfortable with awkward silence.
You do you.
So I'll read the questions. You should structure the language in your service catalog with your IT team in mind rather than your end users. That's question one. Where are services configured? Several options there on where we make a service. Can you hide service catalog categories and services? Where can you find additional information or help about the service catalog design? Several choices there. I guess that's good for the recording to have. I always read it when I'm answering them, but maybe good to have them twice since you can't really see the quiz as part of the recording. Few people have answered so far. Thank you for your participation. Maybe get just a few more, give you a minute or two more to get through questions. All right, a little over half, I guess we'll have to do. So we'll go ahead and end the poll and go over the answers. So you should structure the language in your service catalog with your IT team in mind rather than your end users. So this one, the way it's phrased, we would say is false, because the point of the service catalog is to push self-help for your end users. And so we want it to be a way that you're organized in a way that an end user can navigate it and find things. And so the language, if it may be, your multi-factor authentication service is a Duo, but everyone just knows it by Duo, that's probably what you'd want to name your service. That's just an example. But so just things that you can reliably know that people, your end users, can find your services. So we would say that one is false. Where are services configured? A couple of options there. The applications client portal service catalog is the correct one. And so your services live on the client portal, and then they are referenced in the ticketing applications, but you create them from the client portal. So the middle one there, applications client portal service catalog, is the correct answer. Can you hide service catalog categories in services? So everyone got this one right? Yes, via groups. So great, we just went over that. So I'm glad that stuck. And so you can set visibility permissions based on the groups that have been configured inside of Team Dynamics. And so that's a really cool feature, I think. Where can you find additional information or help about the service catalog design? So we had several choices here and everyone got it right as well, all of the above. So getting started with your catalog KB article, other customers' current service catalogs. There's a lot of examples out there. So pick and choose from those things that you like. And then using the EDUCAUSE eCar service catalog research paper, which is linked on that getting started article. And so it is geared for higher education because that's what eCar is a higher ed organization, but it's still helpful for all organizations of all types because it still has categories that span the IT industry. Every IT department at every kind of organization usually has to deal with passwords, so there's kind of like some of those things that are overarching across things. You may not have, research as one of your categories if you're not a higher ed institution, but you can just ignore that one and then kind of pull the things that are helpful to you. But checking out other current customers is also a favorite way of mine to just kind of get some ideas flowing. Okay, great. Thank you for your participation in the quiz. We did pretty good. We'll move on to our next steps list here. So next steps, define your services. So definitely use that Excel template in your project briefcase. It's again, kind of a good place to just put everything down in one spot so you can look at it and you're not having to create the services and then go back and delete them or change them in the tool. You kind of want to get a game plan in that Excel spreadsheet first. Configure some services templates, employ someone who knows HTML to help out with that template to make it pretty if you have that resource available to you. If not, definitely use the WYSIWYG. It's great. Just get information out there. Something is better than nothing. Configure services. So configure your top 5 to 10 in the next week. And so that's kind of one of the readiness homework items. And so you usually can identify the bulk, 5 to 10 that are a large portion of your things and configure those and then just keep adding from there. Configure some categories, and remember it's easier to do some services before you create some categories. And so we definitely recommend doing that in that order. Then determine and configure visibility permissions of the services and categories. And so if you have any, you may not start out with any internal services, and that's fine. So you don't need a category that's hidden yet if you're not going to have any service category services that are internal at this point. But just know that that is an option and something you can do. You can expect to spend around 4 hours completing these action items. And that really just depends on the like level of detail that you gather, how many services and all of that. And so it's and how large the organization is, I suppose, too. And so you may have only 5 services, or you may have 50, you know, it just sort of depends. And if you have 50, that doesn't mean you have to have all 50 of them configured before you get out of readiness at all. We just want you to understand the concept of how to create a service in a category. But do bring in others to help with this. So that example way back from the beginning where we work with the security team to define the services that they provide, because I, as an admin, I don't know everything that they do. And so they gave me information that we could then put into the services for sure. So getting help with updating your updating your action items. Come to the workshop session this Thursday from 1 to 3 Eastern time. Log an issue in your implementation plan, and the team watches those and will help you out as you put those in. There's an article about how to add an issue if you have not done that yet. Make sure that you're updating your action items as you mark them off and as complete, then to keep up with that homework that helps us know where you're at, how you're doing, and we report on it so that you can get handed off to your implementation consultant as fast as possible by updating those action items. And then finally, schedule a time with someone on the professional team, my goodness, I can't talk today, professional services team as needed through our Calendly link. And we just ask that you create a project issue and have that ID as a part of your booking so that we just know what we're going to be talking about. So we can come prepared, maybe look up a setting or, just gather our thoughts about the topic prior to the meeting. If needed, and just really helps us make the most of that 30 minutes that we have together, because it goes by really quickly. I feel like every one of those sessions, I'm like, oh, it's already been 30 minutes. So put as much info into that project issue as you can. And that's the end of our content. So any questions, anything we're going to go back over, show you where something is, or any questions about types, since we kind of threw that in there as well today. Hour 20 minutes, not bad. For a smaller group, I'd say that's pretty accurate. More like an hour and a half when we have a larger group, maybe a couple more questions. So if you're still typing, maybe raise your hand. Okay, well, thank you for your time today, and let us know if you think of any questions, put in an issue, or if you were still typing, last call to raise your hand so that we get the question in there. Okay, thank you all. Have a good afternoon, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, everyone.